Beautiful. Thanks for joining, guys. Thanks for having us. Where's Rachel?
Thanks for having us. So, are we live? Oh, so we are live. So I just want to mention now that. Oh, there's someone listening. Can you guys hear me good?
Oh, we're live. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Welcome. We have these beautiful women, and we are just waiting for one other woman to join in for our panel discussion tonight. I am woman. So we're just going to wait a little bit, and then we were going to start in a few minutes, so Rachel can kind of hop on. How's everybody tonight?
We are.
Everybody looking forward to our chat?
I am.
In supporting incarcerated loved ones is a big topic to cover, but we have 2 hours and we're going to, let everybody have the opportunity to speak and, just enjoy the chat. So I'm going to go in. Rachel was going to be my first one that's going to be introducing. So I'm going to jump down to the next person, and maybe we should wait a little bit to see, to let everybody kind of join in, to see if anybody's joining before I start to let you guys introduce yourselves, and then you're going to have to reintroduce yourselves. So we'll chat amongst ourselves for a little bit, and then we will get into, do you guys want me to tell you the order of how I have it so that you're kind of prepared, or just you're good?
The order. Go ahead with the order.
Okay. So
here's Rachel.
Okay, so Rachel's first. Hi, Rachel.
Hello.
Hey, beautiful
Good
one.
evening, everyone.
How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm blessed, thanks. I love the light, natural light behind you. Love it.
Thank you.
So I was just going to go in the order that I have it on here, which is you introducing yourself first, Rachel, then Leah, then Sheena, then Stephanie, and then Karen, and then Alethea. Okay?
Yeah, not a problem.
I think I wanted to just wait a few minutes to have people, so people can kind of get in.
Okay, I'll be right back then. 1 moment.
Okay, so that we can let people in, and then we can get started. So I think I'll give it till maybe a few more minutes, like 4 more minutes, and then we'll fully start.
Sounds good.
Okay. Everybody's good with that?
Yes, I'm good.
Hi, cute. Ezekiel's loving it.
He's a people person.
He's loving it. Hi.
Are you saying hi, Papa? Or are you trying to touch me?
Can I don't see that people are in this. Do you guys see?
No, so we won't see it on our end. But I believe
if you can let me know when
you can just see if you could just put a message in the group chat itself.
Okay.
But I guess what I could do is I can kind of just start as we have individuals coming on. So good evening, everyone. My name is Rachel. I work with Keep Six.
Hold on, Rachel. Let me introduce. I haven't even introduced myself.
Oh, sorry, my apologies.
Okay. So hi, everybody. I'm Carrie Wilson, and I'm a part of Keep Six, and I am the host for tonight's wonderful I Am Woman, supporting incarcerated loved ones. This session is going to be these beautiful 6 women sharing their stories, and just dropping gems for you guys to learn, to listen, to enjoy, and to start. So to start it off, we pitch it over to Rachel. Go ahead, Rachel.
Good evening. My name is Rachel, and my story, I was a street-involved youth at the age of 16. And through my time, I saw a lot of friends loved ones, including my partner, fall into the entrapment of the criminal justice system, and fall into that cycle. And through supporting my partner, especially through his incarceration over the course of the last 10 years, I was able to see firsthand a lot of the struggles that came with supporting somebody inside. And from that, my passion to really advocate and speak for those on the inside grew. And I've been blessed with the opportunity to work with Keep Six as the program's director, to really just create initiatives and find ways to really support those that are on the inside and give them a voice. And yeah, that's a little bit about me, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the evening.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you for that. The next person is Leah. You can unmute yourself, Leah, and start.
Can you guys hear me well?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah? Okay, great. Okay. I was having some technical difficulties earlier, so I'm glad that's gone. So my name's Leah. I'm a mental health advocate. I have 2 sons, and I am a mental health peer mentor with the Center of Innovation and Peer Support. So I basically support people based on my lived experience and training that I've had. To do that by doing one-on-ones, either just me and a peer or in a group setting. So we run groups for people. They're free. Anyone who has either self-identified or clinically identified mental health challenges or addictions, and just listen to people and things like that. So that's what I do. I don't have anyone like a relationship with someone that's been incarcerated, but I do come from a background where my mother and siblings have been incarcerated.
Pause that, Leah. Pause that for a second. Pause that, because we're just going introductions, and then you can go into your story. So pause that for 1 second, okay? So thank you for introducing yourself, and we're just going to move on to the next person, which is Gina. Just introduce yourself, and then we'll go into your stories after that. Let everybody get introduced first, Gina, and then we'll go into stories.
Sure. So I'm Sheena. I'm like, wait, the story is kind of my introduction. So I'm just like, I'm Sheena. It's good to see you all.
Shorten it then.
Yeah, I have been working on the inside for lots of years now, either through education or just working with certain men to be able to self-actualize. I get to be part of that journey. So that is where I'll leave it. We can talk more later.
Stephanie.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Stephanie. I also go by Stefani Martinez or DJ Stefani. I'm an entrepreneur. I am a DJ, a community activist, and I'm the wife of Lamar Stigma. Some of you which know his story. He's currently incarcerated for a crime he didn't commit.
Sorry, pause a minute, Stephanie. I hear some feedback. Is that somebody's? Okay, go say it again.
The whole thing, or just
the last part?
I said I'm Lamar Skeet's wife, which some people are aware of who Lamar Skeet is. He's currently serving a life sentence for a crime he didn't commit. So I'm here on behalf of, I'm looking forward as well to the conversation tonight, and I'm here on behalf of Keep Six, of course, and advocating for Lamar.
Thank you. Beautiful. Thank you. Our next one is Karen. And Karen Samuels is a mental health challenge advocate who has personally gone through her own mental health challenges and is working on that. She's coming out on top on that. She's the creator and founder of My Black Now Future Stories. Take it away, Karen.
Okay, again, as you said, I am a mental health advocate and awareness, especially in the Black community. Gone through my own struggles myself, and I witnessed to a lot of others going through their own struggles and don't know what this is. So I'm there to put myself in the forefront to let them know they don't have to be ashamed. And I think this is a normal thing. Now, how are we going to fix it?
Thank you. Alethea?
Hi, Carrie. Thanks for having me. And just want to say good evening to all the panel members and also to Keep Six. And as I said, my name's Alethea. I am the proud owner of CA Consultants. I'm a registered psychotherapist and a child and youth care practitioner. And I'm also certified in restorative justice mediation. And I'm here as a mental health advocate and support for tonight in the chat, and also for people that are struggling in their relationships and they may have some conflicts and they realize that those triggers go back to some of the issues that stem from their childhood. So we deal with those limiting beliefs, set goals, and help you navigate through those life challenges so that you're able to make better decisions. Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. Thank you. Thank you so much for supporting us through this conversation, who's well needed. So we want to hear your stories, ladies, your truth, and what led you all to the choices you made. So we can go into the same order, or we can do popcorn. Whoever feels they want to start their story and their journey can take it away. So which way you guys want to go in the same order we went in introductions, or you guys can do popcorn.
I can go first.
Okay, go ahead. Okay.
So with my story, as mentioned before, I was street involved at the age of 16. And being street involved, there's very limited options at the time in terms of very limited resources that were available to me. And to be honest, it was the hood that took care of me. And being at that young of an age, there was a lot that I saw. And with that, I also saw a lot of those that I considered my friends and those who I was close to fall into the entrapment of the justice system. And that included my partner, who served a 10-year sentence. And during that time of really having friends that were going through the system, it never really hit me. I believe at that young of an age, it wasn't necessarily as impactful for me. It was more just almost the norm for individuals to go in and come out. But as that changed to really supporting someone who was incarcerated and starting to see just the way the system can have an effect and see how it can change somebody over the course of his sentence was really what got me to start to shift to a point where I wanted to find a way to make change, to create change, and to support individuals, because there were times even for myself where I found that I didn't have any supports. And I didn't have anyone to really speak to with regards to it, because individuals may not have understood what I was going through, or the advice that they had offered wasn't necessarily what I needed. And so that's sort of where my journey started, in terms of really being able to provide a platform and finding ways to support those that are incarcerated, because the mental health aspect alone is very, very overwhelming. And I know it's something that we're going to talk on quite a bit throughout, but really just going through it, not me personally, but supporting someone who was in it, really opened my eyes to see how destructive the system can be.
Thank you. And I just a few things that you touched upon that I just wanted you to elaborate a little bit more about. You said the hood took care of you. What do you mean by that? And what ages were you street involved?
So I left home at the age of 16. And at that time, when I left home, I was basically couch hopping for about 3 years. And it wasn't the support that I got wasn't from a community partner, a community resource. The support I got were from individuals in the neighborhoods that I was staying in. And these particular individuals may not necessarily have been doing earning their living in the most legitimate way, but they were making the means the best way they knew how to. And that exposed me to a lot of and oftentimes when people hear about certain neighborhoods that are marginalized neighborhoods, low income neighborhoods, there's a certain stigma associated with it. But really being able to see that despite whatever it was that they may have been involved in, they were also the ones that were really trying to take care of their own neighborhood, but just only in the way that they knew how to.
Okay. What are some of the changes you noticed that in your partner or the loved one that was incarcerated that you felt like that called you to take action, and to now this is where you're at in your life, is still helping and fighting for and supporting the making the justice system a better place for black involved?
So for him, I mean, men in general tend to internalize a lot of their feelings. But especially when it's someone that's inside, you see that it becomes a lot more evident. And simple things in regards to if there were certain human rights violations or certain areas where I'd say we could file a grievance, we can follow the normal protocol when it comes to, or what the protocol is when it comes to requesting certain necessities, to when it came to maybe things that were needed on range or what have you. And speaking to him, it would always be like, there's no point. We can file a grievance, but we're not going to hear anything. We're not going to have a response. What's the point of talking to someone? Why would I talk to a CX2 or why would I talk to a 4-bar? They're not going to do anything in regards to that. And hearing that response, and then also understanding how seeing the resilience in how they fight for themselves in terms of listening to the conversations or the interactions, if he was on a phone call with COs coming in the background and mocking them, or just the way that conversation would go, and in terms of him never speaking to anybody from a family perspective, or even when he was outside like that, but hearing that how that conversation with someone on the inside is, someone of authority on the inside. And at first I was kind of like, why would you speak to someone that way? But also hearing how they speak to them and understanding that going through that year after year, there's a huge gap in terms of really just the quote unquote levels of support that they're supposed to be seeing. And because of that, there's such a huge lack of trust. There's such a huge lack of, there really isn't, you really don't see very much of that rehabilitation because of it, because a lot of their interactions, they just don't have faith in that, in the quote unquote rehabilitation programs. It's really more just a routine that they go through, as opposed to they're just trying to do their time, really. And I noticed those changes in terms of him internalizing a lot of those emotions, sometimes being more isolated or withdrawn, sometimes calling and it just kind of being more in a monotone because it's just another day. It's the same routine, nothing's changed. And being that person on the outside who can't necessarily lift those emotions all the time, it did affect me a lot as well personally. And it was really it was more so, how can I help, or what can I do to at least make that time move a little bit faster, a little bit better for you?
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Leah? Sorry. I said it right, Leah?
Leah, but I'll answer it to Leah. It's fine.
Thank you. So go ahead, Leah. You can now continue on with your story if you can remember where you left off.
Yeah, so my
Just start all over.
history or my background with dealing with someone who's been incarcerated is growing up with my mother. So she's been incarcerated multiple times, and sometimes for very long times, also out of the country. So it's something that I grew up with, that even though I knew it wasn't normal because my friends' parents didn't go to jail, it felt normal because it's what I knew, it's what had always been. It was something that was happening from I was really young, like single digits, until in my teens, where when she was gone, I would be the one taking care of the home. I'm the oldest of 5 on my mom's side, so it would be me taking care of my siblings, going to school, making sure everyone else is going to school.
Looks like we're having some technical difficulties. Leah. What, Leah? She's frozen.
Hear me because I just. Yeah, I just. Okay. So that's kind of the support that I was giving.
You froze for a little bit, Leah. You froze for a little bit, so we missed it again.
Am I back?
Speak.
Am I back?
Okay, it looks like you're back. Okay, you're back. Okay, so keep going.
Okay. So I'm not sure where you guys heard up into. So I was just saying that
care. It left off at taking care. You had to make sure everybody got to school, taking care of your siblings, so that from there.
Yeah. So with my mom, like being away whenever she would be in prison, the money would be at the house for me to take care of everything. So I didn't have to worry about making the money to do things, but I did have to make sure that I budgeted well enough to last for however many months it would be before she would return. So that was the way I supported her through that time. And for me, because I don't know if it's because I was young, but my mom never really talked about the hardships of being in jail. She never talked about what she couldn't have or could have. She made it always very clear that if, the actions that you have can lead to jail time, that those are what the consequences you're going to have to face. So it was never an idea of like, oh, I wish you weren't there, or I wish I wasn't here. It was like, I'm doing my time. You're going to take care of what you need to with your siblings, and life is going to go on. During that time, it was a lot. Like, I didn't know. I knew at those times I personally had mental health challenges. I'd been diagnosed really early with chronic depression and chronic anxiety at a really young age. But I wasn't taking care of myself in my teens or my 20s, really. So a lot of my coping mechanisms were not healthy. It was a lot of partying and hanging out. When my mom would be incarcerated, I would have friends that lived at the house with me and my siblings. Fortunately, never had any big issues with that, but we got by. It seemed it was regular. It was normal. It was natural to, be 18 and 19 and making sure that my sisters and my brothers get breakfast and have lunch to go to school, and that I go to school, and then we come home and take care of everything, and everyone's picked up on time. So
Can I
that's
ask
kind of,
can I ask a question, because it's just racking my brain as to how were you able to do this without was anybody involved, outside agencies involved in your
no.
family? How were you able to take care of your siblings, pick them up, buy groceries, and no neighbors noticed, no family members noticed?
So my family members were aware. Um, Again, so it was really happy. Like, I remember being really young, like 12 and things, and my mom would always be gone, and I would be taking care of my siblings. So it was kind of like I was conditioned from birth to know that this was my role. My role was to make sure my siblings were okay, because even when my mom wasn't incarcerated, she was normally on the road. Like, I always say, a lot of people only know like their fathers or a male figure to be the hustler, and for me, it's my mother. Like, she's a 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365, always on the idea of making money, and that's how it's been my entire life. So it was just regular and natural to take care of the home when she's not there, or when we didn't have a babysitter. So we would have, like, the old Jamaican lady that would come and live with us and take care of us every now and then. And then when we didn't, it was me, and that was
So
just.
you had
I
some
just times are
adults.
different,
You
right?
had
So
you had some adult supervision during that time that you were taking care of your siblings, right?
but prior to me turning 18, when I was 18, there was no one there. But prior to 18, and when she would be gone, we would have someone that would stay with us.
Okay. And no CAS involvement. And the siblings didn't, teachers didn't inquire, teachers didn't ask. Wow. Wow. You're amazing. Thank you so much for the story. You must have been taking care of them kids well, boy.
Yeah.
And yourself, because nobody was involved, nobody was called. I applaud you. I applaud you, and being
I've
so
never
young
even
as
thought
well.
of that.
I know it's not, it is a way to, it's to be proud of, but it's also to be just resilient, show your resilience. So we're bigging up the resilience part of it, not the situation part of it. So definitely you are absolutely resilient and understood that this is what you had to do, and you did it well. That's what I'm bigging up. So thank you so much for sharing. Next person is Sheena. And Sheena, dig into more of like what you do and because it's yeah, that was interesting in your story. I wanted to hear more about that.
Yeah, so I work with youth that are incarcerated. I used to I used to teach high school at the inside of Toronto South Detention Center, Toronto East Detention Center, and Vanier Center for Women. And in those years, well, I was gifted an opportunity to work with brilliant people and watch them realize how brilliant they are. So I'm really grateful. And like your question around when we had originally spoken, Ms. Carey, you had said you don't have lived experience in this, and I was kind of like, I had to catch myself, like, wait, like I don't have a loved one, I don't have a lover inside, or a husband or a boyfriend, and it certainly is different. And I have loved ones inside in many institutions all around this country, actually, and I feel really grateful to have them in my life and to be able to witness their changes and my changes throughout the time. I now work specifically with young men with firearms related charges. And like connecting them with resources, but like the way that I see it is mostly in walking alongside them as they decide to self-actualize, which is it's really special. It's really special, and I work with some incredible men who have certainly changed my life. I'm trying to think if there had been a question around like how have I witnessed them change.
I'll get to the questioning
Sure.
part of
Okay.
it. We just want to sort of share your, and you said that you supported, and when I want to just clarify, when I say that you don't have lived experience, I wasn't saying that no lived experience. I mean,
No,
Direct in a sense. I was just asking to clarify, just getting to know these women. So Sheena, I wanted you to touch a little bit upon how you were supporting the people, the loved ones that you had that were incarcerated. What were some of the supports that you were offering or you could offer to your family members or your friends or whoever you had that was incarcerated? And you said too that they taught you some things. So what did they teach you? I know I'm going into questions already, but just give me that little bit and I have more questions anyways.
Sure. Well, I'll speak to the present day because this is currently like I've been doing this for some years now. So your first question is, actually I forgot your first question. I think,
how were you supporting these people that were in, and you said that they have just they've changed your life in a sense. So what kind of changes did they do to change your life? Like what kind of impact did they
my
have
guys are, we have a lot of conversations, like our support. So like on paper, my support looks like connecting them with Keep Six or Hope or tons of organizations throughout the city and actually now like in different parts of the world, which is really special. Connecting them with I don't like any of the terminology we use in this field. So I just want to say like I actually get to be part of it. I'm like, one of the brothers here meet so-and-so and here let's figure out this relationship so we can actually take something from what this agency is supposed to be doing. Sometimes, and I think all of us have run into this, many agencies don't actually do anything. They say that they do lots, but they don't, which is another obstacle that we face, that everyone faces, and especially people that are inside face. It's very frustrating. So the support is like, I want to say it's purposely conversational. My guys and I create like beautiful frameworks for ourselves on how we want to be in relationship with each other. Meaning I have 21 guys on my caseload right now. And I know that there's lots of people watching. So shout outs to everybody watching. And I love you guys so much. And all of the partners and all of the people that I work with in this work. And so I want to say that the support really looks like that. It's like being a part of, like someone's life.
Yeah. Okay.
In the truth of it, like instead of it being like, I could label all the things like how we've gotten connected with this and this and this, and that's all like kind of industry talk that I don't necessarily want to do. I feel like I get to be a part of people's lives. I know their families, they know mine. We're like, we get to be in each other's lives.
That's nice. Thank you. The next, Stephanie.
Hello. Hey. So a bit of my story, kind of like Rachel, and I guess like most of us growing up, all we seen was people around us get arrested or get harassed, just for how they looked or like their appearance and stuff. In regards to my husband, Lamar, we started dating each other at a very young age. I was 14, 15. He was 16 years old. Shortly after of us like being together, it wasn't anything really serious, like we were kids, we were young. I liked him, he liked me, nothing crazy. And shortly after, he ended up getting arrested. While he was arrested and was awaiting his trial, he was in the Don jail at the time. He ended up so he was an artist since the age of 12. And while he was in the Don jail, he was basically he said a rap over the phone that they publicized on the internet, and the rap was called Live from the Don jail. In that rap, he was just depicting the raw realities that he was living in the Don jail. And while they were in trial, basically the Crown found his rap online and presented it as evidence to use as a motive for like to convict him, right? So I'm getting the story a little bit mixed up, sorry. So when he was like prior to that happening, prior to the whole trial thing happening, when he got arrested, he was arrested for armed robbery. And while he was awaiting trial, this is the first time he was arrested. Um, while he was awaiting trial, they put an attempt murder charge on him because somebody went to the police and was saying, "Hey, Lamar and his brother shot at me," you know. So they were already both in jail for the same armed robbery, so they just like added the other attempt murder charge on him. Lamar ends up coming home. After he comes home, the person who had gone to the police ends up passing away, and they arrested Lamar um, automatically just because he had already been charged for the attempt murder of the man. So when they arrested Lamar, uh, they they didn't have any evidence on Lamar. The only thing that they had was the fact that he was previously charged for the attempted murder of the same man. So while he was awaiting trial, this is when the song comes out, and he does this live from the Don jail song, and the Crown presents it. And this is another now motive for evidence. So in the lyrics of the Don, live from the Don, he's talking about, like I said, the raw reality that he's facing there, people getting beat up, people getting stabbed for bags of chips, for gambling or whatever it may be, the code that they have to talk to each other, um, or when the COs are around, or whatever the case may be. And basically they bring that up. And one of the lines that he says was, "Real dudes don't crack to the coppers." And they used that one line and was like, okay, Lamar said this: real dudes don't crack to the coppers. So this means that he's against talking to the police, communicating with the police. And this is the motive as to why this person passed, is dead now. And basically, it's been a journey since then. Lamar got arrested when he was 19. Um, and he got convicted when he was 21 for 25 to life. Like, we went through the appeals. um I wasn't with him the whole time. Like, while he was actually going through his trial, it was very stressful for me, because I was also like a young lady trying to figure myself out. So I did break up with him, and I try to, like, you know move on with my life. And though I was trying to, like, move on with my life, I just didn't find anybody who made me as happy as Lamar did. And I knew who Lamar really was, so I actually reached out to him, and I asked him to contact me, and he hesitated a little bit. Like, obviously, for the fact that, I just kind of left him. So after that, we started building our trust again, building, our relationship. And we went through the appeal together, which you guys could hear me, right? Okay, so we went through the appeal together. So in the appeal, if they find like any reason as to any error that happened at trial, they're supposed to grant you your appeal. But what happened in Lamar's case was that the judge said, he admitted that the judge who had his case erred in admitting those lyrics as evidence, but they still decided not to grant him his appeal. So that was a whole controversy against that. Professor David Tanovic wrote about it and spoke about it, um, with the Toronto Star. Like, there's been, the lawyer Lance Beechner also wrote about it and spoke about it. So there's a lot of people who, are speaking about his case and have talked about his case, and they're saying that it's unjust and it's unfair. Um, and after the appeal, he basically had to um, go to the Supreme Court of Canada to kind of like overrule that appeal, to appeal his appeal. And legal aid didn't want to cover this process or this part, because they said that basically like his case had no merit. Like so if they don't see that like you have merit in your case, or if they don't believe that you have any merit in your case, they won't fund you. So they didn't fund him, and Lamar being in jail at this time for like 7 years now, how's he going to come up with the money to pay for his lawyer? You know, the lawyer is asking for $20,000 and more just to write, just to start the process, you know, like just to write a letter to the Supreme Court of Canada to say like, hey, like, hear me out, hear my case out, you know. And basically what we had to do is, at the time, we just like created the whole Free Lamar Skeet movement, and we came up with like t-shirts. He did a whole mixtape on like what he was going through, the emotions he was going through at the time, and just feeling like, you know, he was alone. Like he still had support, but like still feeling like he was alone, like he was trying stuff and nothing was working out for him. So literally by raising money through selling these specific t-shirts and the mixtape, we were able to come up with the money for his lawyer by selling it. Like, you know, that was the only way we were able to do it. So thank God that happened. But unfortunately, Supreme Court still said this is not a national issue, because in order for Supreme Court to even hear your case, it has to be a national issue, right? So they're like, oh, the rap lyrics, that's not a, like, you know, like you getting convicted for your rap lyrics, that's not a national issue. It's not a big enough issue for us to even bring to the table. So they didn't reject it or deny it, but they just said, hey, we're going to choose not to hear your case. But technically speaking, Lamar and I were like, okay, so what's next? Like, that's the last step. Like, that's the last thing we could do. We can't technically like reappeal an appeal that didn't end up going anywhere, you know? So at that moment, we were distraught. We thought that nothing was left to do in his case, and we didn't know what to do. Even the lawyers were telling us like, hey, like, we're sorry, man, like we don't know what to tell you. Like, there's nothing you could really do about it unless new evidence comes. So then that sparked, you know, a light bulb. It was like a new evidence. Okay, what's going on? So we started Googling, or I started Googling and looking for what that specifically meant. So there's actually a section in the law where it's called 696.1 ministerial review, where you can get, I think it's the Minister of Justice, to oversee your case. And he's the only person, or she's the only person, who can basically override every other decision that's been made. But in order for that to happen, like, you need to have new evidence. It has to be fresh evidence that wasn't accessible at the trial, you know, which is something that like gracefully we have. And so like that is also in cahoots, so to say, with the Innocence Canada project. So like the way that the Innocence projects usually, like, I know for sure I've seen some documentaries from the States and even in Canada, the way that they win their cases is using this specific law, like the New Evidence Act. So that's kind of where we are right now. Hope in the Six, Eddie Martinez was actually able to line us up, connect us with a lawyer from the Innocence Project called Sean McDonald, and he's currently now working on the case. He told Lamar to apply for Innocence Canada. He did that last year, and that's kind of where we are right now. They said it takes a few years to process and for them to investigate and all of those things. Sorry, Carrie, I think you might be muted.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry. Yeah, I wanted to just, yeah, where exactly, how do people get involved? I know, first of all, did you research this and find this law on your own?
Yes.
Like no lawyer told you this, or you didn't get
No lawyer told me this.
Amazing.
I
We
mean,
are
like,
amazing beings. Like, we just have to applaud our amazement. When we need to get our resiliency, when we need to get things done, we get it done. Love it. Okay, now, before I forget, now I wanted, how do you get into the Innocence Project, and Do you know that what that process looks like? And maybe Sheena, you can also touch upon that if you know a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, so basically, I actually already had looked into the Innocence Project, because all these documentaries were coming out on Netflix as well, where they're talking about this Innocence Project in the States, you know? So when we lost the appeal, before we even went to the Supreme Court, I called them. And like I literally went on Google and I was like, Innocence Canada, or like Innocence Project Canada, and it popped up. It said that it was in Canada. So once I seen that, I got the number, I called them, and I told them Lamar's case. And they're like, this is not, like, we don't come in yet, basically. Like, that's what they said at that time. Like, this is, we can't really step in. You have to exhaust all your appeals. So that's when we're like, okay. And that's when we went to the Supreme Court. In regards to like the application, you literally just go on Google, write Innocence Canada Project, and it will pop up. And like if you just read through the text, it'll tell you like, this is our story, this is what we've done, these are the founders, and if you know a case like this, or you are interested in joining, here's the application, download it, sign it, and mail it to us.
And how long of a process does this take? Like, do they have to invest, like look through your, because I watch a lot of crime shows and some of the shows have the Innocence Project stuff on it too. So they have to go through his and see if he is a possibility of being innocent, right?
So, yes. So first they have to decide like whether they, like they believe you in a sense, because there's thousands of people saying that they're innocent. So they have to, like, you have to, the whole application, I don't remember how many pages is exactly, but it's like, I feel like it's like more than 7 pages for sure, where you're writing your story, um, you're describing your charges, you're describing like what evidence you believe to have that is new. Because like even in Lamar's case, he knows what the evidence is because he knows his story, but it's something that we don't, some of the evidence we don't physically have on hand. So that's when they come in, and they would need to get like private investigators to look through surveillance cameras, footage, like,
Okay.
so
So they do their own investigation as well as you having to fill out and give your stuff to them as well. The stuff from the courts.
Exactly.
So you have to have your paperwork to them, and then they also do their own. And then like what's they get all that information. How long did it take you to get that decision that they were going to take your case?
It was actually pretty quick.
Oh, that's good.
This time around. I believe I was telling you on the phone when we were conversating, but it was because he did it in 2020, and they did explain it was because, like, technically we were connected with a lawyer from Innocence Canada prior to even doing the application. So I guess that's what gave it a little bit of a push. And also because last year was COVID, so there wasn't a lot of things, or it's still COVID, but there wasn't a lot of things happening in that regards. Like it was a little bit slow for them, so they were able to come to it fast.
You kind of like lucked out, but also not lucked out because you did your research and you did your work, so you already had it in place going. So that's awesome.
They did say that the whole process is something that takes anywhere from 2 to 4 years. So
oh my goodness,
it does take quite a bit of time.
Wow. Well, amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you. Karen, you're next.
Just unmuting. I'm listening to the stories that I'm wowed at what's going on. But just to tell you guys my story, do I have someone right now incarcerated that I'm supporting? No. But I can tell you where I'm coming from with this. Leah is actually my niece. Leah is my eldest brother's daughter, first child. We grew up with my brother as He was kind of like my savior with a lot of things that I seen around him. I seen him as a protector. I know sometimes when I would have my mother come in ready to beat and stuff like that, he'd come in the middle so to stop me from doing that. So I looked up to him as somebody who was protecting me, not knowing things behind the scene. We actually moved away to Calgary when I was 8, and now realizing, just remembering back, we moved back. My older sister and my brother stayed. I came back and it was like a rush moving back, I remember. Now, older now, remembering what it was because my brother went to jail. He got 4 years, and at Campbellford. Or Camp Belford. I don't even remember how to say it. I just remember having to drive up there every other Sunday, and it took like what was forever. And we're coming from Jane and Finch to drive up there. I remember picking up Leah. I believe Leah, I'm 10 years older than her, and having to pick up her and her brother, that's my brother's kids, and going up there. Now, I will say for me, going in that environment, I do remember having to go inside, then always having to be pat down. And then at that point, I think, I don't know what it's like now, but we would talk through the phone. I'd see him talk through the phone, and I remember my mom would hold up the kids and smile with the kids. And I do constantly remember, I can't tell you what, I know I do remember them saying it was minimum security or minimum a facility that you're at, but I do remember going outside and playing a lot and meeting other families. So I know that was family days, yes, and I always remember looking at, I loved going outside and playing and meeting other people and running around. And I do remember, again, Leah and her brother coming out, and they get to play with other kids. And I remember him always spending a lot of time with them, always hugging and kissing them. And I remember I would look out and always wonder why I couldn't go past the fence. This is when we were outside and we had benches. There was always food at the time, now knowing that was family day, and always seeing the guard, but I wanted to go past the fence. And I can tell you it looked beautiful there outside. And this is, remember, coming from an 11 and a 12-year-old. I do remember my brother pulled me aside and did ask me to take care of the kids. I didn't know what he meant at that time. I was 12. I didn't know what was he was talking about or anything like that. I just knew that at that point when I went up there, as much as it was pretty, and I think because the scenery was pretty, because I can't tell you was inside, I just knew I didn't want to be there inside. Because inside was the yucky part. Outside was the good part where the benches were. I could tell you now, going back to just the mental part of it, I remember my mother having a breakdown. We lived at Connection at the time. And when we came back here, my older sister had ran away in Calgary, and she couldn't bring her back and didn't have the choice to bring her back. That's where child services came in, because my sister asked to leave and ran away, and they wouldn't give her back. And then my brother went to jail. What he went to jail for was pimping. And this is where I said, what was said of my brother, I don't remember that. Him being like that. So obviously he was two different people. Some of the things that I know Leah and I have talked about, where, as I said, I seen my brother as a protector for me. I seen him as, I remember back in the days where his friends would come over, he would run me upstairs and his friends couldn't look in my direction. My brother went to jail for pimping, but you couldn't touch his sisters. So that's where I said the disconnect came to me. Now with my mom, that was her first child. That was her first love. Somebody took that away. And for 4 years, she had to run back and come back to, I'm assuming, to help him. I do remember one time someone came to the house, and I'm sure it had to be social services. And I remember them shutting the door, and I heard, because I was always nosy like that, they call me Foss. And I remember hearing her scream. And there was a point where the door cracked a little bit. And I remember I seen somebody holding her down on the bed because she was flashing and wailing. What I'm getting now, she was having a nervous breakdown because she was taking too much of this in. So this is where I'm saying I'm equating now what they're going through by having a loved one incarcerated and what to do. And she didn't know anybody that I knew of that time that got incarcerated, and then what he was incarcerated for. Some of the things that you're hearing that allowed to happen to young women, and he has 4 young sisters. And again, what they were saying about him, I didn't see it, never felt it. And that was not my brother who they were talking about. That's not what I knew. Coming up into my own story and going through my own mental struggles, I was a confused little girl. I'm just going to tell you that. But I played the part well. Could anyone tell that I was confused? Never. I bounced around, I will say, what's Jamestown, Driftwood, top Driftwood, then moved to Calgary. We moved around in 3 different locations, went to 3 different schools, then came back here, lived with my grandmother who threw us out. And the way that she threw us out, and I know my grandmother loved me, but her and my mother just couldn't get along. She actually threw water on the bed so we couldn't sleep on the mattress anymore. And we had to end up going. And I remember turning back at my grandmother, and I knew she didn't want us to leave, but at that time, the way that it was with my mom and her, they just couldn't get along, and that's the way they got along. I was just confused, then having to move again. People say to me all the time, but you're so friendly. You just walk up to people. Well, that's because I was used to moving around and starting school in the middle of a year. And I knew that I had to find my way to fit in. I was not going to be the shy child or the one to be left out. So when I'd have to start school in the middle of the year, I had to find out who was the popular ones and fit myself in. So that's maybe why I was bold. And people, again, assume things of me. They assume, oh, you're confident, you're strong. No, I was struggling with insecurities. Even though I was going out and pretending I was happy, I was going home being called a big-nosed black brute. You're ugly because you're old. This peak in my forehead. You look like a witch. I don't like you. I like this one more. So I was struggling inside. But at that point, I don't think anybody knew what mental illness was or mental challenges. You just sucked it up. Finally, for me, it broke. And 6 years ago, I tried to commit suicide by drowning myself. It didn't work. The therapist that I was talking to said I didn't want to kill myself. I was looking for attention. Had somebody been there, because I did it on my own, had somebody been there, I probably would have went through with it, because the person would have probably tried to stop me, and I probably would have just done it for that. I was just calling out for help. And the only way I knew to call out was to try to release it by, giving up. But I didn't want to give up. That's why I came back up. And for me, right now, I advocate so much because I see in the Black community, when going through what I was going through, physically I changed, lost a lot of weight, and I was judged saying I was on drugs. I was going crazy because I was doing things that they weren't used to, from this peppy, high-strung girl that was so confident to now somebody who they say was talking to themselves. And I had full memory loss. I don't remember a lot of things. And what I used to get was, you need to read the Bible, you need to go to church, or you need to go on your knees and pray. I'll be honest with you guys, I started hating God because of all those things. that I was being said. And that's because they didn't understand. How do you want me to read something that I don't understand, and I don't understand what's going on inside my brain? And mental illness doesn't mean you have a demon inside of you or anything like that. I just needed to understand what was going inside there. Now, last week, just to jump to that, I had the opportunity with Rachel and Richard to go out to, there was an event that was happening at the Toronto South Detention. And I was hearing stories of people inside. And just because of the COVID-19, the programs that were being taken away from them, how they were being locked up, how they were being switched around to different facilities. And one of them hit home to me when he was just saying that he's used to having a phone call to his family, and there's no phone call anymore. He's used to being able to see his family. There's no family anymore. And he wanted to talk to somebody. And that just brought me back to me when I was struggling, and sometimes I'm still struggling inside. And fortunately for me, I do still go to counseling. I do still talk to a therapist when needed. And to see if that was taken away from me, how I would deal with it. But I'm free. I can walk. I can go out there. Now, how would I feel locked up, right? And I don't want to judge I don't want to say that everyone should be let free and stuff like that, but I'm just talking about the mental aspect, locked up and not having a program or anyone else to release to. I can understand why now some people struggle to even stay alive. Do you want to be alive? And that's where I was at. Did I want to be alive when a lot of people did not understand these mental challenges and they play like they do, or they will just suck it up? Everybody else is going through this, or I don't care what everyone else is going through. I'm talking about me, Karen Samuels, right now. So if I'm telling you I don't know what's going on or I'm struggling, I don't want to hear you come back and tell me, well, I didn't ask you about everybody. I'm saying what I am going through. Individualize it and stop telling me what I should be doing or what I should be going or how I listen to me, and let's figure this out together. Help me get the help that I need. That's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, thank you. That's a lot. And I think because you were going through it in a different stage in your life, because you were dealing with your brother when you were younger, so you didn't really get to process what was going on and helping support your niece, Leah, who was also going through it. And then Leah, I just want you to sort of touch upon, like, you were young when your father was, and you were visiting your father in prison, right?
Yes.
Like what age do you remember?
So he got deported when I was 8. So this is prior to 8.
Okay. Do you remember those interactions?
I have very small memories, but I do remember playing with him, like being at the jail and like playing with him and being tickled and stuff like that. And that's about it. I didn't find out about. I knew that my dad went to jail. I knew he was deported, but I didn't find out what it was for and stuff until I was in my late mid-20s.
And how did you find that out, if you don't mind sharing?
It just happened that my brother, who is also we have the same father, he ended up getting in trouble with this for the same issue, for pimping. And when that happened, it was kind of like, my father used to call my dad, and everyone was like, look how his son is doing the same thing what he was doing. And we didn't know that that's what he was doing. So it was like a coincidence. And that's...
Or we would like to put the term like generational trauma. So generational trauma, it travels, because your brother was also visiting your dad in jail as well, right?
Correct.
And
probably not as much.
Okay.
As I was, just because I would more visit his mother, like visit Karen, and I'm more like sometimes by myself, not with my brother, but he still did visit him while he was incarcerated, and my mom was being incarcerated those same times as well. So it was either on one or the other side.
And I know some of you have gone through the process, and is the process, because Karen, this was like what, 20 more, not 20 years, but
Yeah, no, it's over like there, because again, I'm 48. I
oh,
would like to drop into something with Leah though, where it came into that when her brother, we're not a close family. So for her, she was around as a baby. She was probably 2 at the time. When my brother got deported, they didn't come around anymore. It wasn't that family. And her and her brother were just left. When my brother went back to Jamaica, there was no more interaction. So I'm going to be honest with that. We knew they were there. They were around, and he has other kids that still ask me, where were you guys? I'm here now, but I was also young myself, and they weren't around. My mother never took them after. They never really, we knew that they were there, but his kids were never, it wasn't that family where they were just gone. And they were left to fend for themselves without his side of the family. And I'm just getting what he meant now with take care of the kids. That's why, to be honest, she can tell you, I'm the only one really in the family that has reached out to all of my brother's kids.
and Leah, for you, I mean, this is the struggle seems to continue. It's continuing through the generation to generation, and it's seeming like it's stopping with you, because in our conversation, I know that you have not, gone down the same path, and you're trying to stay away from that and support your journey and your mental health. And I think, what do you guys think? I'm going to go into some questions right now, but in regards, is it the same methods of taking children into seeing your partners or seeing people, your loved ones? Is it the same way that children get pat down, children get searched? Is it the same procedures? Because I'm not aware of that. So if anybody wants to take that, that would be great.
I could say for when I was younger, going to visit my mom, we walked through the metal detectors straight up until I was in my 20s visiting my brothers. We, walked through the metal detectors. I know when I was younger, though, when I would visit my mom sometimes, like we would, like, say, when I say we, I mean the kids, me and my brother, or just me, myself, I would be allowed to, like, lay my head on her lap. She was in Vanier, I know, that I was mentioned earlier. So there would be times where we would have visits where I could actually physically touch her and be able to, like, lay my head on her lap. But I did always notice that the adults couldn't touch, but we, the kids, could touch my mom. So that was, helped the situation, but it was the same.
So jumping into like 20 into now, is it the same procedures? Has that changed in any shape or form? Sheena, you want to take that one? Is it the same procedure?
Like there are lots of layers to this. Like the women's institution is different. Period. Vanier has very different ways, and there were many advocates at the women's institutions for this. So I'm really grateful, Leah, that thanks for sharing that you got to have that physical touch. We can look at like places like Toronto South Detention Center, where like they actually, prior to COVID, the only way you saw your partner was through like a Skype screen. We like our organization is fortunate enough to have privilege to go inside. But we aren't patted down. We go through lots of metal detectors and Sally ports and things like that to get inside.
So you're not strip searched any, like, is that not the process no more? There's no strip searching? Because and just thinking, how do they prevent things like from happening where, things can come in through your children or hiding through there is that process not happening?
The South doesn't, you can't see your friends and family at the South. There's no physical seeing them. So there's no, like, it sounds like you're talking about maybe, like any type of paraphernalia, that happens often. And it comes inside through however it gets inside. But when it comes, like, if we're talking about the South or the East Detention Center, there is no, you cannot give them anything because you don't physically see them. You talk through a glass or you talk through a screen.
Okay, and there's no actual physical touch, but there is, and I know Stephanie, in talking to you, I know there is actual visits that you were able to do, but let me go through some questions and then we'll get back to, all that as well. And if there's any questions in the chat, please feel free to jump in. But my first question is to the whole panel. Whoever wants to answer it can. I'm just throwing it out here. What do you feel was missing on your journey that could have made your journey to overstanding yourself easier? Because I know you guys have all been different stages in your life with it. So what do you think was missing from your journey?
So if I may, I'll get into that question, but I do just want to clarify a little bit when it comes to current visitation. So visitation in a provincial institution and federal institution are completely different. Provincial institutions, there's no touch visits or physical. As Sheena mentioned, it's all strictly through glass or through screen. With a federal, and to understand the difference between the two, provincial is anything that's anyone that's in remand or anyone that's 2 years less a day, whereas federal is anything that's 2 years plus a day. So with federal institutions, there is touch visits in terms of the process to go through screening. Typically, you would go through an iron scanner. So they'll scan some piece of either article of clothing. It could be your keys, your shoes. They'll swab something, put that through the iron scanner itself. Once you get past the iron scanner, then you'll go through the metal detectors. And then once you get through the metal detectors, sometimes you're able to go in right away. Other times there may be a dog as well, where you'll have to stand. The dogs will come around, and then you'll be able to go in after that. So there's a few steps for the touch visits themselves to prevent any sort of contraband or anything like that from getting into the institution. But from the provincial level, because there is no touch visits and everything's literally through either like that plexiglass screen where you're just talking through the phone or through an actual video screen, the requirements are a little bit different for getting into the institution.
Thank you.
That clarifies it a little.
Thank you for clarifying that. Because, for people who are withdrawn from this and don't have the experience, it's very good. Thank you for clarifying that. Go into your answer.
And with federal too, if you look at the visitation, if you go on, say, the CSC website with visitation, it does say that you may potentially be subject to a search or quote unquote a strip search. However, they don't actually do that, as there's a very gray line in terms of where that from a legal standpoint. So ideally, if someone were to hit on the iron scanner for whatever reason, or if they were to hit through the dogs, they'll typically go through a couple of options of either you'll just be sent home. They may look at, VNC may go through a review to see what your visitation status may look like. Depending, a 4-bar may come down and give you designated seating, so you'd only be able to sit in this particular area. But other than that, that's kind of as far as it goes from that aspect. In regards to, could you just repeat the question? I remember in regards to what do I wish I had, or
what do you feel missing on your? I'm getting some feedback or static from. You guys, if you're not speaking, you could mute yourselves for a little bit, just so we can test the feedback. What do you feel was missing on your journey that could have made your journey to overstanding yourself easier? And that's for all of you.
It's the unknown. When it's a friend or not necessarily your partner, but a family member, it's a different feeling than when it's your partner or your husband or your wife or someone that's of a very, very close connection with you. And it's the unknown. And for some individuals who never gone through the process of being that primary support person, it's not knowing what to do next. And I get that call so many times from individuals where their partner's just been arrested, and it's like, what do I do next? Who do I call? How do I put money into his canteen or his commissary? How does visitation work? How do I get approved for visits? It's just not knowing what to do next. And there isn't really a guidebook or a resource that really gives you step by step what to expect. It's sort of just like Stephanie's mentioned, you're learning a lot of this on your own. And as that primary support person, you can find yourself up at random hours in the night, Google searching, reading the CSRC, going through all of the laws and everything that's governing the decisions and policies that are made, because it's really just trying to find as much information as possible. And then through that process, it was also getting the support. So not everyone understands what that journey looks like. So it's very difficult to be able to talk to somebody or reach out to someone who's unaware of what those feelings are like, what that emotional struggle is like. For some people, it might be a stigma associated with knowing that your partner or significant other's inside, especially if they're also aware of what it is that they may be in for. And for those reasons, it was me also trying to feel like I had to have all of the answers. I had to be able to find ways to make his time better, essentially. And having to realize and take a step back to realize that I can't necessarily do that. And in those situations, I can't always be in control. If you're going through a lockdown, there might be 4 or 5 days where you're not going to hear from that person. And knowing that you really can't do anything in that situation. And there's a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress that comes with that. And really understanding how to sit in those feelings, acknowledge those feelings, but also understand how to take time for self and not necessarily allow those feelings to completely consume me, to be able to at least carry on and be able to function. Because like Karen mentioned, there can be times where you're really just faking the funk, where on the outside it looks like everything's okay, but on the inside you're not.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Rachel. Anybody else want to take on that question?
I'm going to say for me, and again, back on the mental side, and I think even hearing from inside what's going on inside, support. Hear support for, and I mean real support, not for someone, yeah, I understand, and no, you don't understand. Awareness. I wish we had more awareness and education about the mental challenges, about where to turn, how to turn, and funding. I'm going to say for funding for programs that for youth to maybe not have them down this way, mentorship for not to glorify certain things so they don't end up certain ways, and for the mental challenges to pull away again with the education, as I said, for us feeling ashamed to come out. Even I know I'm going back in the days when I was younger, I know it was almost like there was a little bit of, I'm assuming this from my mom, just overhearing conversations, even with my grandmother, being ashamed of saying her son is gone to jail. and then being ashamed of saying what he's going to jail for, being judged. So I wish there was just more that we could support groups to say we're with you instead of judging you, and funding where when you need help, if it wasn't for my benefits, I wouldn't have gotten the help. And I also know that these therapists, these counselors have to get paid too. But for a lot of us, we couldn't afford that. So more funding so we can get these therapists for someone to actually speak to and get out what they really need to get out, than to maybe turn to a friend that doesn't understand, that can end up pushing the person over more into the other side than helping the person.
So that, yeah, so those are some of the things that you felt like you still feel today that is missing from the walk of the process in your life.
100%. I'm finding people that everything now is mental challenges, mental illness, but they're not educated and they don't know of other sides. Like last week, I just went through anxiety and I just learned this. Didn't know what this was, but I was bringing up from my mouth and from the other side. And that was a part of the anxiety. I started to realize that just my triggers, which because of counseling, I got into that, where I'm knowing where I'm getting more irritable very quickly. And I'm also, my anger is building up. With me, I have extreme anger and bitterness, and I've got to learn to control. And now that I know the signs that when I'm feeling something coming up, okay, how to bring it back down. And then again, the labels that you get, oh, she's going crazy again. I was never crazy.
Yeah.
Right. So let's stop with that. Maybe you're the one that's crazy because you're not going to get educated and understand this. And please stop comparing me to Mary, to Jane, to Bob. I'm Karen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm the Karen, but
yes,
make
you are.
me be me.
Yes. And I hear a lot of the same sort, that word that keeps coming up. And I want to throw that word out. I want just anybody to touch upon it a little bit more. The shame. In the Black community, we are like, a lot of that is the reasons, a big reason is why we keep a lot of things from people, and don't tell your business, don't tell people your business to people. So what was that, a lot of were you guys feeling a lot of that pressure, or that word being thrown out there in your journey, in your walks, or is that not that relevant anymore? Because we're learning and we're getting better with mental health and with people being incarcerated, and because it's such a systematic racism for us, a lot of people have been affected by it either directly or indirectly. So is it like not taboo anymore? So feel free to tell, you know what I mean? What do you guys think with that word shame?
I think it's circumstantial, depending on who you're speaking with. Especially within the Black community. If it was older family members, when are we gonna see so and so, or when are we gonna meet this person that you're with? I couldn't tell them, oh, he's in prison. That's just not something that would come up. I would say he's away for work. He lives in Quebec. He's away for work. I would find any excuse to avoid that. When it comes to people that are younger, that are more understanding, then at that point I could say, yeah, he is away. And they're a little bit more understanding to know not to inquire. That was the one thing. I know for some people it was like, oh my goodness, like, what did he do? And for those reasons, sometimes I would avoid it, but there was others who kind of grown up in similar situations where they'd say, okay, like, how are you? And it wasn't quick to be those nosy ones or those ones who would want to know all of the details or anything. What is that like? Because it's sort of an area that you don't necessarily, I don't want to say you're not proud of it, because I'm definitely proud to be his partner. But there is that stigma that's associated with it, and it's not necessarily something that you want to bring up, because you can feel that shade. I've gone to counselors who, when I've said that, there is almost like a change in tone, automatically. There's almost just a shift in sort of just their responses after that. And it took me a very long time before I found a therapist who was basically like, I've got loved ones that are incarcerated too. Like, let's take it to the next step. What do we do next, right? It wasn't an, oh my goodness, like, how can I? It was more like, okay, what do we do next? But there's definitely, it's not necessarily as, I guess I would just say it depends on who you're speaking with. If it's work, it's not necessarily something, I don't think anyone at work would even know that I have a partner that was incarcerated. And it's just really kind of keeping certain parts private to avoid some of the questions that come after.
So it's not, so it sounding to me like the shame word is not associated with necessarily you personalizing it, the shame, but it's the external. It's the stigma. It's the, the judgments. It's the, the questions, that the uncomfortable questions that you don't want to answer and not have to go through. So that's more, am I right? Am I getting that from everybody, Stephanie?
I wanted to add something to like what we're saying about shame is, for me, it's like very ironic because Lamar and I talk about this all the time, like sometimes depending on the circumstance, it is, you do feel shame saying the situation or expressing that a loved one is incarcerated. And it is circumstantial. However, it's just like ironic because technically people who are incarcerated, they're just somebody who got caught, if you understand what I'm trying to say. Like, we're all human, we all commit mistakes, things happen all the time, like if we were to get caught, we would be incarcerated as well. So the shame just kind of lies behind us technically just being human, but because the loved one is incarcerated or whatever the case may be, like that's when all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, what did he do? Or what did she do? Or like that's when it becomes bigger than, what it is.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add that.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. So I'm going to throw out another question. Is there any questions in the comments that we want to address or direct it to anybody? Okay. So we're going to go on to what would you change, if anything, from your path? Like, what is there something that you harp on and you focus on that you would, and I'm going to throw that out to Leah first to answer, is if there is, because she's had, so much of it throughout her life, that is there, and I want you to say that for the younger person going out there, like for what would you tell your younger self if you could?
So and it's funny because I was actually thinking about this while you were asking about the shame and everything else, just because I've never been ashamed of the fact that my mother's been incarcerated multiple times. My mother's not very shameful. It's always been the understanding that you make your bed, you lie in it. So it's not as if it was like it's a secret. Like, I do remember my grandma wouldn't know what was going on. Like, it would always be, she's in Jamaica, let's do a 3-way call so she doesn't hear, the collect call coming in and stuff like that. But in regards to like changing, for me personally, I wouldn't change anything because, like I said, it was normal for me. It was what my life was from a really young age. And it set me up to be the person who I am today. Like I said, at 18, I was running a household. I was taking care of 4 siblings. I was frying the fish on Easter for the first time and, you know, sticking all to the pot. So those things built me up. Now, would I want anyone else who's 18 or 16 or 14 or 12 going through what I went through with having, you know, you never know it at the end of the day if you're going to get that call and the call is I'm in jail, or, you know, if somebody's going to not come home that night. I don't wish it on anybody. I don't think we need to build resilience like that. But for me personally, it really made me the person who I am. I've learned so much from everything I've been through. It wasn't easy, but it taught me so many things. It taught me humility. It taught me how to manage a home. It taught me how to take care of other people. So I can't say I would change what I went through. I can't say that. I guess if I was to talk to my younger self, I would say everything you're going through now is going to make you a really good mom. You're going to be the most amazing mom ever because you know exactly what you don't want your kids to go through. And then over the last several years, you're doing the work to make sure that it's not what they go through. So I think that's what I would tell my younger self, but I wouldn't change anything.
And that's incredible. I love that. I love that. And anybody else want to take on that question? Sheena, I just wanted to ask you, because I know you work directly with, you know, men who are incarcerated and are dealing with this on a daily. Do they have the sort of shame attached to it, or, you know, do they feel shame for the family members out there, or is that the word that they would even use? Like, is that something that that even comes up in sort of their dialogue?
I mean, like, it varies. Everyone is so different in how they talk about it. And I have guys that, like Rachel mentioned, like I have some guys in provincial institutions. I have guys in federal institutions. And we, like, as Rachel had mentioned, the difference is like sort of like some of my guys are still in remand. So no, they've only been accused of something. So discussing shame around something that you've only been accused of doing and you may or may not have done. And I know we've briefly touched on racism in the criminal justice system, but this is something like, so your question is, do they use the term shame? Sometimes, but mostly it's like for their family members.
Yeah. So do they feel that? Is that a part of their vocabulary, or is it just the stigma that is associated with them being, because even if you're accused of it and you still have to, there's still something towards that, especially what you're accused of. There's still some societal views on that. So do they take on that, is what I'm saying. Not that do they feel it for themselves, but do they take on the societal views or the outside views or family views of what's going on in their situation? So that's what I want.
The answer is that, like, I will not, I don't have an answer. That's what my answer is. Like, I can, if I look at some things that I see my guys go through when they finally get out, they touch road and they're trying to like find their way through different organizations or bank accounts or whatever have you to just get themselves settled. And I'll be on a phone call and I'll hear like, you know, oh, well, where were you the last few years that you don't have a bank account? And I was incarcerated. And I, like, you know, what I know is that the person on the other line is like, oh, you know, they have whatever paradigm they have around this. And often, like, I mean, in my experience, my guys are usually like, they'll be like, I understand where they are coming from. Here's what I need to do. And I'm grateful to witness that. And Leah, thanks for saying like this resilience thing. I think especially in our community, we ought to be careful with. We don't have to go through trauma to be resilient. It's fucking bullshit. You guys didn't tell me I couldn't swear in here, so I did.
We're all adults. It's all adults. I think that's okay. The curse word can come out for a little bit. Yeah. But we understand. We feel your power. That drive with that. Yes, definitely. Resiliency and that strong woman and the strongness and that terminology that's always carried in our back.
It's what we had to carry all of our lives, whatever we've gone through.
Yeah.
So I actually really do my best not to use this language with my guys. Like we use words like integrity. My guys have remarkable integrity, and it is an honor to witness a person who, like, the whole world has shut out, and every system that we exist in has said that they are something other than what they are. And so it is an honor to witness a human say, like, actually, I'm really great. You know, here is what else I can do. And I have witnessed men and women do unspeakably brilliant things, you know? So I get yeah, I'm so grateful you guys are having this conversation, because from like my vantage point in loving all of my guys and knowing that I'm not in a romantic relationship with them is very, very different. And so, like, hearing the alternative views of it is like, I'm just really grateful. Thank you guys all for sharing your thoughts and your feelings today, because it's really important that we all stand in this together so that people can be all right. Times are too hard now.
I second that. And thank you, ladies. You're doing an amazing job. Some of you, this is your first time doing it, and you're doing awesome. I'm going to throw out another question, because I don't see any questions on the chat itself.
Carrie,
So, yeah?
I wanted to say that to answer to that question, I did want to answer the question, what I would say to my younger self.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
To me, personally, I would have said, stop pretending. I would have said, ask for help. Stop hiding and say you're not okay. And I'm going to go back to as far as 4. I wish I never hid what was going on inside of my head. And I wish I said I need help. I was taught to be strong. I was taught to not talk what was going on inside. I was taught to not beg for anything. And I'm going to tell you now, if I can go back to my younger self, I would have said, Karen, beg for help. I would have said, Karen, you don't have to be so strong.
And to Karen, I'm wondering,
ask for help.
Did they, because we're around the same age bracket.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say, who could you have gone to in those days to say it out loud? You know, I remember bringing parents and they'd be like, I mean, go on, go sit down. Like, you know.
You're absolutely right about that. But I don't know if I would have, because even hearing about schools now, well, church was what we were into. I don't know if I would have spoke up if somebody would have helped, because again, people assumed that I was okay because I played the part. Mm-hmm. My sister spoke up and she was taken from the house in Calgary. So had I spoken, and I was mad at her for leaving me behind because I felt she left me with the abuse, but I didn't know how to speak up, because again, you're going to toughen it up and you're going to go. Up to 6 years ago, I still didn't speak because I overheard somebody on a bus say they were going through mental challenges. And as they were talking, I was like, wait a second.
That's me.
That's how I discovered what was going on to me, overhearing a conversation from somebody talking on a bus. But I was too ashamed because, again, in my community, I was called crazy. But going back to my younger self, I would have said, speak up. Yeah, you're crazy. So tell somebody you're crazy if that's going to get you the help that you need. So I wouldn't have had to go down this path. That's where I would. Had I spoke up in church, I'm being abused here. Somebody would have come. Had I spoke up in school, I didn't even know. Now you could speak up in school. Back then, I don't know if school would have even did something, but someone did something because my sister spoke up. I should have done that too. And that's what I would say to my younger self.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else want to touch on that one? We're good? Okay. So I know that we've talked a little bit. We haven't really dived into, like Sheena said, the systematic racism and what the trauma we have to deal with. So my question to you all are, what are some of the supports and resources that are needed to help families and individuals through or with the process? So what if you could rebuild the system the way that you want it to be? What do you feel that is needed out there that I know that Karen, you had said funding, but what I'm trying to say tangible. What sort of tangible resources that you think you would need or are needed out there?
You know, I can't say in someone else would have to speak on what the prisoners would need inside, but I know outside here, everyone, and again, everything is individualized to what a specific person needs. I had needed therapy. Had I not had my benefits, I wouldn't have. And it took me, I think, 7 tries to find the right fit for me. So, and it wasn't a Black therapist that helped me. I didn't even know that there were Black therapists. So again, education, knowledge, what would maybe it would have made it easier. Yes, but then also knowing that it's okay for me to go to one and that work. I felt I didn't go back for a while when the first one was assessing me like if I was on Queen Street, in whatever they said the madhouse is. And remember, I didn't understand what was going on, and they kept on. So you said you feel like this, so should you go there? And I was just like, no, that's not for me. It's okay to keep on trying and trying until you get it. But not everybody has the resources. I wish we had more free professional help. And not everybody wants to go to a church. So you don't want to talk to that. Not everybody's in there. Just more help and more support groups. Like I would have loved to see people like me that look like me, not with bag tie up over their head, no teeth, or what we assume what it is. Someone that's talking as articulate, educated, that says, I struggled. That's what I'd like to see more.
Anybody else want to take that?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, to rebuild the system is definitely a hard answer. Like for me personally, something really hard to answer because even if we did have the power, or we do have the power, but I mean, like, even if someone were to say, like, okay, today you get to rebuild the system, like, what are you gonna do? To me, that's a very difficult answer, you know. But I would say definitely, like it was mentioned before, just more information, you know, like the lack of information that we have, just even in general, like from the smallest thing to a police officer stopping you, you know, like knowing how to respond, knowing that what to do, what to say, you know, like little things like that. Definitely mental health, not just for the people supporting, but for them inside there, because you know, like they're in there going through all these things, and other than us, you know, like who do they have to talk to? Or
Yeah.
you know, like
I definitely feel like, and I've watched this, like I've heard and I've gotten some messages. My brother was incarcerated and stuff, and I know that they wouldn't even take the support from the mental health professionals that are within the jail because they're afraid of you know, they could use whatever they say could be used against them. So it's having to revamp that. I think that in order to support the mental health and the, you know, while they're incarcerated is, I think, a first step that we need to look at, and we need to figure out a way to have that be supportive, where they're feeling like they're able to say, you know what, I'm struggling today, and can I speak to someone, and not feel like I can't do that because it's going to hurt me in the long run. So that definitely we need to talk about. And I know this has come up, Keep Six's other, we've had a few other forums talking about these kinds of topics. And that has come up where a youth that was incarcerated stated like he didn't tell the social worker or the psychiatrist anything because they knew that it would then be used against them in the court of law, if they, you know what I mean? So it's a lot of stigma and a lot of trauma that we have to.
Or they know that they don't care.
Yeah, exactly. And I love the fact that you're saying, Sheena, that they are amazing beings and they're not what they're labeled as and what they're, you know, perceived in society. And I think that narrative, what I always say is we have to change the narratives. We have to change those words like resilience, like, yeah, Sheena, we have to change those languages. And once we start to change the vocabulary and change the narrative, it then becomes better for the future. So I definitely want you guys to touch upon, because I do see our time is going on, self-care. Like, what do they do inside? Can they even do any self-care inside? And if you guys have any knowledge of that, and what do you guys do in supporting taking care of yourself, because you're having a lot on your shoulders, like Stephanie, you having to take care of your child, and Leah, you having to take care of everybody, plus on top of that, your own mental health, and Rachel as well. So self-care, guys, like, what is that does that term even resonate in jail mentality, in prison mentality, and outside?
Sorry.
So it's a two-part.
I just did want to touch on things that we would like to see to change.
Okay.
Because something that I've been in the clinical mental health setting for many years. I was diagnosed very young, early 90s. And I only recently learned about peer support and peer mentoring. And the biggest difference, there's beauty in both of them, but I found so much growth in myself through being in a room of peers. And I think that it's a lot easier when you sit across from someone who used to be in this jail with you, and now they're coming back and saying, this is what I did to go through something. These are the resources I found because I lived through it. Speaking, all the times that I dealt with clinical help, it was always the same textbook help. But when you speak to someone through lived experience, you automatically feel a difference. And that's for both people while they're inside, and their families, their loved ones, their wives, their husbands. To have someone that's been through it help you and say, this is what I did, or this is the resources I've learned about, it makes a big difference. And I think when Sheena talked about the trust and not trusting, and you mentioned, someone saying they wouldn't say anything to the counselor, that's true, because even with myself in mental health, I would know which counselor I could speak to and which counselor I couldn't speak to in a certain way. And when I'm in the peer world, I don't have that feeling. I don't have that threat or that worry that they don't understand me. And when you talk to people who understand you, you automatically feel the difference. So I think getting more mentors is something my mom used to always say years ago. Like, she wished the people that came out of jail were allowed to get jobs to go back and help the people that are still in jail, because they can offer the best help. They've actually been through it. So I just want to mention that, because I think that would be amazing to see on many different aspects.
I love that.
Incarcerating and people who are outside loving them.
Now the second part, the self-care. I want to hear what you do.
Self-care.
Yes.
Okay, so as a kid, I never knew anything about self-care. I only learned about self-care maybe the last 4 years is when I started hearing the term self-care. When I entered the peer mentoring field and environment, what I knew as self-care growing up was, when you're stressed, you party. When you're stressed, you drink. When you need some time to breathe, you go out to the club. So that's what I did. That's what I knew as self-care when I was younger. Now, fast forward many years, I meditate. I've been practicing yoga for 6 years. I've been to a lot of workshops. Like, I had surgery a few years ago, and through that, took my first workshop was how to live healthy with chronic pain. And then I ended up going to the hospital and taking an intensive patient workshop that dealt with CBD and DBT training. And some people may know about that, dialectical behavior therapy and cognitive behavior therapy. Doing the work. And that's been my self-care. So, remembering to breathe, that's been my self-care. Learning about all the supports that I have, that I don't have to think just one person is my support. Learning that, the sunshine is my support. Learning that my music that I love is my support. Those are the things that I've done to take care of myself and model doing self-care.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. Anybody else want to take that?
I'll touch on what Leah was saying about peer care, peer support. It's really individuals who, like she said, who have lived experience, authentic mentors that those discussions can be real and organic. It's not forced. And that's coming both as someone who works with individuals that are incarcerated. Oftentimes, a lot of the programs and initiatives that we start, I'll go back to those guys that are incarcerated and I'll say, hey, I'm thinking about this. What are your thoughts? What is it that you would like to see? What do you think? How can these guys benefit? I'll get the feedback from them directly. And it's working with individuals that are incarcerated, but also supporting somebody who's incarcerated. It's a completely different load. It's a two-part. And the peer care and the peer support has really been able to get me through a lot. For me personally, my partner was released from incarceration, but due to a dirty piss test, was violated. And that cycle starts all over again. And as someone who works with individuals that are criminalized, there have been times where I'll sit there and say, what's the point?
Yeah.
If I can't help and support and quote unquote protect my person, how am I able to help and support others?
Yeah.
How am I credible? And it was the other wives, and I call them my sister tribe, that really were able to help me push forward on those times where I'm saying, what's the point? There are times where my emails would be completely full because I just couldn't get back to anyone because I just didn't feel like I was in that right position to be able to support others.
Mm-hmm.
And that peer-to-peer support is what's really helped me push through in those times, because they're individuals who are able to relate. They're able to understand. They go through those nights where sometimes you wake up in the middle of the night and you're crying because you miss that person.
Mm-hmm.
They're able to understand what that's like, and they're able to relate, and they're able to talk you through it and push you forward. And then when it comes to like self-care, for me, it really came down to my artwork, my paintings. That's where I put a lot of my creativity and poured a lot of that into. A lot of my creativity goes into a lot about Black love, about the family unit. A lot of journaling, writing, meditation has really kind of helped me get through those hurdles, because it becomes twofold. It's the personal side of it, but also there's that work side of it, and it's very easy to take that work home, to take on that stress,
Yeah.
and not to necessarily have a proper work-life balance.
Yeah.
So really being able to take that time to kind of reflect. I know Karen and I were actually having a conversation today, and I told her, I'm like, I feel like you're talking to me right now. And she had no idea about anything, but just in terms of like taking that step back and taking time for self, and really realizing that there's certain circumstances that just aren't in your control. And because they're not in your control, it's just trying to push forward, trying as best as possible to not let the anxiety and the stresses and the fears for the unknown get the best of you.
Overwhelm you. Those are some really, I love this pair, and we need to start pushing that more. Like everybody's, agreeance on this peer support is a needed and a necessary resource that needs to happen. I have one more question, because I see we're time wise, and I really feel like this is something that we need to sort of put out there so that we could start to think about it and others could start to think about it and create it. So what type of safe spaces do you think are needed for the Black community who have been traumatized by the judicial system? Because I know we use this word of safe space. So how does it look like? What is it? What is a safe space?
Can you rephrase the question? I'm not certain I know what you mean.
Safe space. How do we create safe spaces for people who are struggling, who have struggled with the judicial system? So
As
whether it's
in,
inside or outside. So safe space, period, in a sense. So how do we create that? What does it look like?
In my personal
And do
opinion,
we feel that we have them? We have any safe space out already designated for us?
I would just say like it would look kind of like just going back to like being able to talk to somebody that you can relate to, that looks like you, that is authentic, like just starting off with that would be right there. Automatically, that's a safe space. Like even right now, to me, like this is a safe space,
Mhm.
you know. Um for me, that's what it would start with. I don't know, like diving deeper into it, exactly what it would look like,
Yeah. And
but
I do, yeah, I just want to kind of us to throw things out there, what safe space looks like. And so that again, whoever it could be could start thinking about it and start creating them. So yeah, for me too, like, for example, for me, I agree with you. Safe space to me is people who have lived experience and people who look like me. That's a safe space for me. And that's a safe space that I would like to create. And if I was incarcerated, when I was working outside with youth who have been incarcerated, and I used to have to connect with the people that's in there, that having to help them with getting their credits, or that safe space was me. They would call me out to help negotiate inside, not them who's in there dealing with it. So their safe space was calling me outside to help them negotiate inside. So that's sort of like what I'm trying to pull out, is like, say, like, what is the word, and how do we start to create them? Or if we think that they're out there, what's being done that we want to recreate or we want to focus on some more
And make it bigger. There are
yeah.
a lot of organizations, yeah, that like, let me
keep
not say there are a lot. There are
keep
some
six is doing a
organizations,
lot. Keep
yeah.
six is doing, and starting to make some good steps into, and this is why I'm a part of the organization, is because I feel like they are making those steps to making those changes in the safe spaces. So go ahead, Sheena. I don't want to cut you off.
Yeah, I'm just people like Ruby March and the Zero Gun Violence movement, safe spaces as we know now are shifting. We are online, but often guys inside are not online. And then when they come out, if anyone knows who's someone that's like touched roads since COVID hit, it's like a whole different, like, how do, like, so like, I'm saying this to say that safety has varying degrees. And one of the things that, like, I say in my practice all the time is that, like, it's a revolutionary act to love myself deeply enough to love everyone around me, which means that when I'm with my brothers on the inside or my sisters on the inside, like, it is revolutionary to just be a listener, to just be present enough to hear someone and see who they are. And it is why I will say, like, I don't know what I did last life to be awarded an opportunity to get to work with such brilliant people. I really don't know, but I'm here, so I'm grateful. But the safe space looks like, sorry, I know we have no seconds left, but I want to say quickly, you had mentioned that we can't, what do we do moving forward now? How do we change the stigma and those pieces? The thing is that, like, once a person's hit a certain age, all of our society says that they're unhelpable, except for Keep Six or Amadeus, or there's a few organizations that are like, wait, you're still alive, you're still a person, you're still lovable, you're still worthy. And so it's these pieces now for me, like Auntie Karen had said, that yes, funding, and yes, like, opportunity for, what the hell? These are whole human beings in spaces that are worthy of opportunity to. So one of the things I want to say is that actually, when someone has served their sentence, they should not have a criminal record anymore, unless it has to do with serious sexual violence. Once you have completed your sentence, you come out, you touch wood, and you get to get the work that you want to get, or do whatever the fuck you want to do because you served your sentence. That's my bit. Thanks for listening, guys.
For me too, definitely those conditions and probation aspects of it too, those are set up for failure. I feel strongly that we need to revisit that area and changing those aspects of it, because that, for Rachel's situation, yeah, it will put you in that situation where you feel like, oh my gosh, I did this one thing that is now a breach, and now I have to go back after doing so many other things that were a part of my, like, you know what I mean? That were a part and were not a part of my condition. So that piece of it, I believe we need to tackle that hard and get that revisit and revamped. But I thank you all, ladies, for sharing your knowledge, sharing your stories, sharing these 2 hours. It's gone by. That's another conversation that we have to have about institutional racism and all the things that are plaguing us. And we are going to have those conversations here on Keep Six platform, and myself as well. So thank you again, ladies. I appreciate, love you. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Bye,
Thank
guys.
you everybody for coming and sharing this time with us. We appreciate. If you have any questions or concerns, please tap on Keep Six website, and we will get back to you, and we will address them, and we will support you through the process. Thank you so much, guys. Love you. Enjoy
Thank
the
you,
rest
ladies.
of
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Here.